Hi everyone. It is the 27th of December, and I haven't done anything for a few weeks. Actually, for about 7 days, I've been thinking about it's time to do a video for everybody, and I had nothing to say. And I was getting a bit frustrated, actually, because I had literally nothing. And so I just sat here. And it wasn't until early this morning that this particular video came up, and I guess it's been rolling in my mind for a few days. It's all about the words program and programming. And it's come out of the Amara Strand interview that we did 2 weeks ago, the last thing I posted, because she refers to what's in your mind as programming, whether it be thought loops, ideas, beliefs, subconscious structures. They're all, she calls them programs, which have been, put into us by an outside source. And so I began thinking more and more into that, because on the solstice I did the giving back ceremony that I talked about at the end of that video. I actually did that, and I think it was quite powerful. I wound up getting sick for a few days just after around Christmas, but it might have been related to that process of this giving away some of these programs. The body gets very confused and the mind gets confused. It doesn't know what to do without them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the words program and programming today, and see if that can help us understand a bit of our reality and where we are. Because again, I feel every video has to be related to where we are right now. We can't keep. I'm not going to play games for entertainment or to keep you hooked, keep you addicted to watching these videos. Either there's something of value here, or I'm not going to do it. And it's been, for if you're interested, it snowed like 40 centimeters in the last 3 days. Like pretty much until today, all I've been doing is shoveling snow for 3 days. There's a couple pictures of my place now. And it's just, it's just been shoveling. So it hasn't snowed today, so I get a break. I can actually do this. Okay. So program. So let's look into the word first. What when you go into the dictionary, does the dictionary give you for the word program? And it's interesting to me that this word, which really should have nothing to do with computer usage, is a key word of the computer. It's a key computer lingo, right? And I'm also wondering, how does that tie in, and why does that word relate to a lot of things? I have to get a book for you. Just hang on for 1 second while I get it. Yeah, I might edit that out. I might not. I don't know. Haven't decided yet. Because I also want to take you into some other words that are similar to program. But okay. So first we have the one that probably comes to mind in the modern world most likely, which is a series of instructions that can be put into a computer in order to make it form an operation. Okay. But we have a whole bunch of other words for the word program, particularly in American English. Not so much in British English, but in American English, the word program has a lot of other meanings. It can mean a group of activities or things to be achieved. It can mean a broadcast on radio or television. It can mean a thin book that gives information about a play, musical, or sports event. Now that's one I'd forgotten about, right? I mean, I'd gotten programs at every hockey game I'd ever been to since I was 4 or 5 years old, and that word didn't even cross my mind anymore when I was thinking about program and what I want to talk about, until I saw that, oh yeah, that's also a program. It can mean a government system of services, activities, or opportunities that help people to achieve something. It can be a course of study, especially in university and college. And I'm going to add one that wasn't in here, which is ideas placed into the human mind from an outside source. Ideas placed into the human mind from an outside source. And that links to the word deprogramming. Because deprogramming is usually only used from the standpoint of, you have a cult member who has taken in all of this brainwashing, and now we have to deprogram them. So it means if you're deprogramming, they've been programmed. And I want to take this, the reason I'm wanting to take this in, because I want to discuss what television and radio, why they're called programs and what the programming is doing, how we're being programmed in general, and does the word program indicate to us that we are in a type of computer simulation, right? Now let's break the word down a little bit more. Its origins comes from the Latin word programma and a very similar Greek word programma, which tends to mean a written public notice. Okay, if we break the word down further, we have the word first piece pro, individual word, which means before or in front of or in advance of, right? You can talk, or you can have these ideas of pro and con, which they usually try to make it for and against, sort of sitting at positive and negative, but not necessarily. I wouldn't say if you're for something doesn't mean it's, particularly good necessarily. You're just in agreement with something, as opposed to con, where you're not in agreement. So pro has these. Normally, it's just thought of as meaning before, but it can also mean this idea of you are with something. It can also, as a short term, to be professional, right? A professional is a pro. Okay. Then we've got the end word of this, which is graphy, and graphy is quite simply, coming from Greek, the process of writing or recording. So that's very important, right? Grammar comes from the word. That's the number one word you can think of that comes from the end of the word program in its word origin. So grammar. So we have this idea of before or prior grammar, or in favor of grammar. So how does the word program, which makes sense when you talk about a booklet or a piece of information you get when you go to the theater about who the actors are and what the thing is that you're going to be seeing or whatnot, how does that word become linked to television, and how does that word become linked to computers? Because it's telling you it's something written or recorded. So the process of writing or recording. So we're dealing with this idea of recording, not as we sense I'm going to program. I'm going to from the outside step in and create a system of patterns that whatever I've programmed into will follow. That has nothing to do with the origin with the word origin here whatsoever. How it specifically, of course, became a group of activities or things to be achieved, that's a question mark as well. But when you take the word at its base origin level, it doesn't make sense as to where it's gone to. So the feeling is that program is also, as it's mainly used now, is a sort of spin around Orwellian kind of language. Now, if I go into a dictionary and I just look up other words that start with pro, you will be surprised how many very unique English words have the first three letters PRO as its opening statement that kind of link to this strangeness of the word program, programming, deprogramming. One word is problem. Problem. Now proceed. Now that seems to make sense because we've already had the idea that pro is going forward for movement. Process, that makes sense. That if the original word of program links to the process, and then okay. But let's continue. We've got words like produce, before deuce, That's kind of because before or prior to deucing. What the hell is deucing to make that a word? So that leads into, we have the word profane. Profane, to profess, a professional, a professor. How about words like prophet, profiteer, words like progress. There's another one, or if you say it in proper English, progress, right? Progression, prohibition, project, projector, prolific. What other words are there? Promise, promote. How about pronunciation, propaganda? How about that word? That the same root before, and then we have that pro. If we take that out, then you have the back part of the word paganda. I should actually look up propaganda to find out what the word origin, what the word paganda actually means. But it's all these words are linking because they are with the same starting root. How about prophecy? Prophecy and prophet comes from the same word. Proportional, propose, propulsion, Prozac. Prozac, the famous drug. Prosecute, prospect, prosper, prostitute, prostate. Another one, prostitute, before stitution, before or prior to stitution, or in favor of. Now, I guess they're trying to use it as some sort of profession, meaning as like professional. But again, it's like once you start digging into the PRO words, it's like they're all leading you astray somehow. Every single word almost has like a veiled, double, bizarre meaning to it, or it's like it's just as soon as it has pro, it's presenting these all sorts of different lines of possibility. Protein, protest, Protestant, proud, provide, provision, provoke, prowl, proxy. There's some words that begin with pro. And I thought that was important to show that, because when we go back to the word program, we have to begin to ask ourselves, why do we believe that the human mind gets programmed? Who or what or how are we and have we been programmed? And when we think about television, because it's one of the things that was really clear when I was very, very young and I started thinking about this, why is it called television programming? Programming is obviously, as a word, indicating the way it's mostly presented, that it's a series of instructions that being put into a computer in order to make it form an operation. Or we can say a series of instructions put into a human in order to make it form an operation. So what is the operation? What is the series of actions that the television programming wants us to do? If you look at newspapers, they're called articles. You never hear newspaper programming. But why is that? Why do we have that as television? So it indicates to me that we are dealing with, first of all, a word when we're talking about, and again, this is coming out of the Amara Strand conversation in my ceremony. All of this stuff that is in our, we'll call it in our being, we'll call it what we believe, what we think, what we feel is correct, what we, and it doesn't matter. I've been reading, it took a while to get this, but I've started reading another book that was recommended by someone in the comments on a video quite long back. And I don't remember who she was by name, but I thank you. And she mentioned the books of Hilton Hodema. Now, he's got he wrote 60 books in his life, right? Guy born in the 1880s and sort of growing up in this pre-Rockefeller pharmaceutical medical period where you were much freer to study the body and nature and the effects of everything and really try to understand it before things began to get shut down. And he went through this whole period of having the before, going through it, and then I think he died in like 1970 or something. A book I've been reading is like Man's Consciousness, Man's Divine Consciousness, something like that. But anyway, his basic principle is, and this is, it's mind-blowing because it's showing me again, I'm programmed. Now, I'm not saying I agree 100% with what Hodem is saying. I'm not saying I'm going to disagree with what he's saying because it sounds different. His premise is that humans shouldn't be eating at all. That all food is a poison to the body, and the only reason we age and die before the age of like 600 or 700 is because we eat. And it's a phenomenal presentation, and I don't want to go into any detail on it because and I don't want to suggest anybody stop eating necessarily, because he's very clear. It's become such a habit that that's why we die when we stop. It's that the body has just become, it doesn't know what to do without it. And that's the only way it knows how to function, and it creates a very low vitality. It's allowing us to live, but we live without our what he calls divine vitality, or the vitality of the gods, which is what we're supposed to have. It's been a fascinating book, and again, so I take this back to, that's one of the first pieces of programming you're going to get from the world is, 12 o'clock, you got to eat something. Breakfast, you got to eat something. Whatever, you got to eat something. Got to eat. That's like the first step. And nobody's taken time to examine, okay, first of all, exactly what am I eating? What is food? How does food break down or not break down in the body? How do the cells and electrons and atoms and whatever use or not used as food? Because he presents such an argument that sort of modern nutritional science is like just completely wrong, which is, of course, the more we look into from our current scam of the present time, the more we're seeing how much of pretty much all science in the medical system as it's presented is completely warped and backwards. So this might be as well. And we have to remember that when you study the old palaces, when you study the ancient structures, a lot of the ancient, we'll call them palaces, be they Versailles or Medici palaces or whatever, there's no bathrooms. They have and in many cases, they have no kitchens. They have nowhere to prepare food. Even Nero's Domus Aurea that I wrote about in my Exposing the Expositions book, right? This place was supposed to have like 10,000 people able to be at it any one time, but there's no kitchens and no bathrooms. So it's supposed to be a place where all these people are coming and they're eating, and supposedly then after pooping and peeing, well, where's the food coming from, first of all, if they can't make any of it? And where are the people going to the bathroom on this massive facility? They're telling me they're gonna, if they have to go to the bathroom, they've got to walk like 45 minutes just to find somewhere to squat down and get the stuff out of their system and spend 45 minutes walking back. No. So it makes you wonder if we've really seen a descent, and the descent is coming from our programming. It's not from any other reason. In a sense, we are creating our own descent because we've taken in the external programming. We've had nothing, and of course, like a 2-year-old child is pretty much, defenseless from its external environment, from what the people in the external environment are going to push on the 2- and 3-year-old. Of course, to survive, they're going to have to start believing and doing whatever the parental adult authority structures around them are telling them they need to do. And this just continues as we go on in life. The programming continues. The programs of what to think, how to be, how to act are just literally just put into us without us being able to step back and go, okay, this is what's being presented to me. How do I test it out at all to see if any of it's true? The whole, just because 8 billion people believe something doesn't make it true. It just might be a really good piece of worldwide brainwashing. So I'm bringing this back to this idea of one side of programming I want to talk about, which is is pretty much everything we think of as me, my mind, who I am, my identity, just a series of external programs that have been put inside of us, and whatever might be true and real or divine or complete is been so pushed into the background that we can't even recognize any of what might be true about ourselves because we're just covered in this programming garbage. And that a huge portion of our job should be what we're teaching everyone at the earliest age possible, deprogramming. Again, not like I'm going to take what's in these Hodema books and believe them and necessarily start doing it. I have started taking some steps. I've started eating smaller meals. And I've noticed, because I talk about I have these stomach problems and whatnot. The stomach problems have mostly been, a lot of them been going away just by eating smaller meals. By recognizing that maybe I don't need to have a completely full plate to actually get whatever the body needs. And I'm beginning to start saying, I'm not sure actually what the body needs. I've been told what it needs by a bunch of external people that I trusted at a very young age, but, well, what do they know? When you go and look back at what the doctors and scientists and researchers in like 100 years ago were saying, it's completely opposite to what's presented today. And again, once you've got the Rockefeller takeover of medicine, who knows anymore what's going to be presented has any value whatsoever, because it's all about profits and control, right? So we have to disengage everything. And we have to recognize every television show we've ever seen, because that's what they should be called, television shows, right? Every television show and / then movie we've ever watched is a form of programming on one level or another. It's programming. It's in the name. It's a television program. We have to step back and say, well, what have we been programmed? From anything, from the kids' shows, from if you watch Spider-Man or Scooby-Doo as you were a kid, to some musician on TV, to a talk show, to your favorite movie, to watching a sports event on TV. It's programming. It's programming. It's not just that they're not saying like you go watch a baseball game. If you go to the ballpark and watch the game, it's not programming. It's not a program. You're watching a baseball game. But if you watch it on television, it's now programming. So what is being presented from the use of a screen, right? From the use of a screen, and perhaps a whole lot of interconnected, strange ways it's put together, that the very same thing that you could go and see live would have no programming. By seeing it on the screen in your house becomes programming. So that's the first thing you need to really look into it yourself. I'm now seeing is the depth of this external brainwashing we've gone through our whole life. And you don't really begin to recognize how deep it is until you bump into like things like I did with the Hodema book, and kind of like, and this guy's got like 60 books on like a variety of topics. I'm going to look into more of them. Just out of my own curiosity, he's kind of got like a Rudolf Steiner feel to him, like he's got like a lot of information and a lot of different branches, and he's kind of anti-establishment with what he says. Programming. So then we got the second part of it. That being a program being like an application or something that's placed into a computer. So then we have to ask from the second level, are we programmed, and are we being programmed seemingly from the world around us, because we really are. We are actually just we're just a program in a machine, and so we're being programmed by other programs in the machine. Like, we're just a character in the Matrix that is constantly being monitored, updated. Things are placed into us, taken out of us, shifted to see and believe certain things. That this idea of the whole idea of the program is indicating to us, again, that that's what this is. This is a type of just, that is what, and we too are just a program. I want to have a conversation with somebody, another interview with somebody. I don't know if he's going to say yes to or not. I'm not going to say who it is until they agree. But I want to talk to them about what's happening in our world now from the standpoint of where the world is moving within, a very short period of time, which is basically to hook all the human minds of the world into a virtual reality. And so this, whatever you want to call this, will be like gone, won't be pretty much accessed anymore, and the whole world of people will just be living in an artificial construct. And I want to talk to them about how can we take what's going on now, wind it back to where we live in our current world, in order to figure out, maybe that's what happened to us earlier, that what's happening now already happened like 1,000 years ago, before, and we're just the end result of, the highly mechanized 1,000 years of artificial reality computer program that we lost the ability to tell the difference of, and the certain few of us that are really pushing against everything that's going on now, that is really against everything in our world. We are the few ones that are remembering the 1,000 years ago when things were occurring the last time to create this particular realm. Throwing that out there. So, because, we're told very clearly by the ancient texts that this is a microcosm of the macrocosm. That everything in small, in miniature, is a perfect replica of the larger, right? And that includes the human body. So our whole body, because I was thinking about this from the book with the atoms and electrons, and we're very clear that if you watch the way atoms and electrons move, it's the exact way that science presents what a solar system looks like, right? The way a nucleus and an electron move is the exact same way they'll show the solar system of planets, right? There's no difference. So again, you have to wonder, is each of the cells in my body just a tiny solar system that's mirrored to the external reality, and that I'm just actually really just one cell of one atom, one molecule of a much greater being, that the greater being can't recognize me, and when I'm interacting with people in this world, I'm having the experience of interacting with people. I'm having the experience of having an interview with Emily or Cambell or Michael or whoever, for example, but I'm really just interacting with another cell, another electron in my own body, that inside my body there's a me, so there's an actual replica of me in my body, and there's a replica of Michael, and there's a replica of Emily, and there's a replica of you, and a replica of everyone else. So when I think I'm talking to somebody in the world here, when I think I'm having an interaction, or I'm showing you stuff from this book, it's really just the cell, or the nucleus, whatever, me in my body interacting with another electron that's this book, and the experience is really going on some sort of internal electromagnetic computerized level that is being projected outward as a external real world experience, which none of it is, but that doesn't mean it's completely untrue either, because on some level there is some sort of thing happening on some electromagnetic something. When I hold this pen right now, on an electromagnetic level, something's happening, but it doesn't mean it's happening with me, the thing you're seeing, and the pen that's in my hand. It means that something is happening, just the consciousness that is, the awareness that is rooted in the thing I believe to be this body is projecting it into this kind of experience for whatever reason, and we have no idea why we want to project this particular experience in this particular realm out of however many millions of potential experiences there could be, ways of not experience, but ways of presenting the same experience. I mean, me holding this pen could be presented a million different ways. but it's being presented like this. And that may have to do with the program. That may have to do with the way that the electromagnetic reality on its deepest core level is happening. The way it's being experienced by all of us is just the program. And once we recognize our experience is nothing but everything, every bit of our experience is nothing but a program, what happens if we're able to release every single program that's interacting with us? Now, I kind of got into this a bit in my last talk with Cambell. I've got 2 interviews that have recently came up just before Christmas. So the 4th Rules of the Realm with Cambell, I'll have the links below. You can go and see that conversation. And we got in actually at the end of it. It sort of takes, we talk for an hour. Like the first 20 minutes is just like warm up. And then we zero in on stuff. And we wound up zeroing in this time. I got us talking about contracts and agreements. And what agreements and contracts are we making or being made without us ever knowing a contract or agreement was made? And how bound are we by all of these things we don't know we even have? How bound are we by what are probably, obviously, if we did agree to something, it was agreed either under duress or it was agreed to we were being lied to, we were being manipulated, it was fraudulent. So once you see that probably all the contracts we believe we're interacting with and all the agreements, I don't mean like necessarily written contracts, I mean like the contracts we've made with the universe, with ourself, with reality, with nature, with whatever. These, nature is this, so I'm going to be like this. This person is like this, so I'm going to be like that. The government does this, so I'm going to be like that. All of these are contracts. They're all programs. They're all constructs. And so the question from this period, what happens if you remove all of those programs, all of the constructs, all of the contracts? If they get rid of all of them, you might be left with just the core program, the core initial, the core whatever that's generating the experiences of this reality. And if you get to that level without any of the external programs on top of it, then you might actually see what this place is. So I think that's all I had to say. Yeah. It's trying to use these experiences and use the push that we're getting, because as the world pushes against us more and more and more, you can either be knocked down and kind of rolled over. You can choose to stand your ground and fight the push as long as you can. The third option is, as the push is happening, can you almost be like in Oriental martial arts, where the push from the opponent becomes your movement of energy to deflect and change and completely alter the situation. So can we use the push that coming to us each individually to go deeper? Can we truly use it like as like we're standing to the door to the unknown, and we're kind of like we've been for a long time. Oh, I don't want to check that out. I don't know if I want to go there. I don't know. This looks a bit scary, or I don't have the time. And reality is, maybe if we use reality as like, yeah, but you know what? Not only can you not go back there anymore, you can't even stay where you are. The push to even stand still, it requires so much energy to be still. The only option we've got is to finally start moving forward into the abyss, into the unknown, into what we've been staring at for so long. And if we treat what's going on now as for ourselves and our journey as a positive push to get us to go where we haven't wanted to go to this point, looking into things like, what are programs? How is my mind constructed? How is my belief structures done? Should I believe anything that I actually believe? You're moving into the unknown. You're moving into this you're moving into the abyss. You're moving into the place you've been avoiding. So, yeah, the reason for I'm still doing these kind of videos is to try to say, are there ways we can use the mess of our reality for something that will benefit us individually and then possibly in some collective level down the road? Again, links to the videos will be below. I wanted to say thanks for some really nice PayPal donations that came in earlier in December. I don't want to say the people's names because they probably don't want their to be publicly mentioned, but I do want to thank you for them. They're extremely appreciated. Thanks again for book sales that keep continuing to happen. They're also very helpful. You know, I don't make a tremendous amount on each book, but each of the books sold is collectively very helpful to navigating this this experience. Thanks to the people who are the interviews that I've done maybe 50 interviews or so now over the last year. A few more to go in January. I don't know how much more I'll do after January. I've got a couple to do in January. A couple I'd like to do for you, interviews for you on this channel. And so yeah, thanks for all of that. Thanks for all of you for continuing to stick around. And I'm still deciding at this point what 2022 might hold in store for all of us and what it might hold for me, and what is the right use of my researching time. I've got like 3 videos I know I want to do in January, and like I say, a couple of these interviews, and then after that I don't really know what I'll do or not do. But there you go. Programming. Let me know in the comments if any of that opens some ideas to you or gives you something to contemplate, which is kind of a part of what we're doing here. Can we contemplate as a group and come up with something that's useful? See you probably just before the new year with a look to 2022. Cheers.